Margaret Mitchell. Biography. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Margaret Mitchell was a writer whose novel Gone with the Wind brought her worldwide fame. The book was first published in 1936. It was translated into different languages and reprinted more than 100 times. The work has often been called the book of the century, as the novel surpassed other best-selling works in popularity even in 2014. Childhood and youth. Margaret Mitchell was born on November 8, 1900, in Atlanta, Georgia, to a wealthy and prosperous family. She was a Scorpio by zodiac sign and Irish by nationality. Mitchell's paternal ancestors moved to the United States from Ireland, and relatives on her mother's side moved to the new place of residence from France. Both of them fought for Southerners during the Civil War from 1861 to 1865. The girl had an older brother named Stephen. The father worked as a lawyer and handled real estate litigation. Eugene Mitchell made the family into high society. He had an excellent education, was chairman of the Town Historical Society, and as a young man dreamed of becoming a writer. He raised his children to respect their ancestors and the past, often recounting the events of the Civil War. His mother's efforts should not be underestimated. Brought up and determined, she was known as a remarkable lady, ahead of her time. Maria Isabella was one of the founders of the campaign for women's suffrage and a member of the Catholic Association. The woman instilled good taste in her daughter and set her on the right path. Margaret, on the other hand, enjoyed movies, adventure novels, horseback riding and tree climbing. Though the girl excelled socially and danced well. During her school years, Mitchell wrote plays for the Student Theater Club. Then, as a student at Washington Seminary, she attended the Atlanta Philharmonic. There she became the creator and director of the Drama Club. In addition to theater, Margaret was interested in journalism. She was editor of the school's yearbook, Facts and Fiction, and served as president of the Washington Literary Society. At 18, Margaret Mitchell met Henry Clifford, a New York native of 22 years. The acquaintance took place at a dance and gave hope for the development of a relationship, but Henry was forced to leave for the front to fight in the battles of World War I in France. Margaret enrolled at Smith College in Northampton, Massachusetts. At this institution she studied psychology and philosophy. In 1918, Margaret learned of the death of her fiancé. Her grief was doubled when the news came that her mother had died of a flu epidemic. The girl returned to Atlanta to help her father, became mistress of the estate, and immersed herself in its management. Mitchell's biography traces the story of Scarlett O'Hara. Margaret was a bold, daring, and intelligent woman. In 1922 she became a reporter for the Atlanta Journal, for which she wrote essays. Books. Gone with the Wind was the novel that brought Margaret Mitchell fame. In 1926, the writer broke her ankle and stopped cooperating with the magazine for which she worked. She was inspired to work on her own, though she wrote it non-linearly. As a Southerner, Margaret created a novel about the events of the Civil War, evaluating them from her own, subjective point of view. But Mitchell was attentive to historical facts and based her descriptions on a variety of sources. She even interviewed former participants in the war. Subsequently, the author said that the characters of the novel have no real prototypes. But, knowing the peculiarities of the views of suffragettes, understanding the mores and characteristics of the era of the Great Depression, the popularization of psychoanalysis, Mitchell gave the main character unusual qualities and characteristics. The symbol of America became a woman of not the kindest of morals. Margaret carefully crafted each chapter. According to legend, the first one had 60 variations and drafts. Interesting fact, the author originally named the main character Pansy and only changed her name to Scarlett before submitting the manuscript to the publisher. The book was published by Macmillan Publishers in 1936. A year later Margaret Mitchell won the Pulitzer Prize. From the first days, the statistics of sales of the novel was off the charts. During the first 6 months of circulation was dispersed more than 1 million. Today the book sells 250,000 copies a year. The work was translated into 27 languages and was republished more than 70 times only in the USA. The rights to the film adaptation sold for $50,000, and this amount was a record. In 1939, Victor Fleming's film, based on Mitchell's novel, was released. It won 8 Oscar statuettes. The role of Rhett Butler was played by Clark Gable, and Scarlett was played by Vivien Leigh. The actress in the lead role was searched for 2 years and approved only that performer, who reminded the director of the young Margaret. The popularity of Scarlett increased after the premiere of the film. Ladies' outfits in the style of the heroine appeared on store shelves. Margaret Mitchell flatly refused to create a sequel to the novel. Moreover, she willed after her death to destroy her other works, so it is impossible to compile a complete bibliography of the writer today. If a sequel to Scarlett's story did exist, the reader will not know about it. Other works under the author's name have not been published. Interesting facts about the novel Gone with the Wind. The author ignored the invitation to the premiere of the film adaptation of the book. Mitchell came up with the name of the main character directly in the editorial office. The title of the novel the writer took from a poem by the poet Dawson. Personal life. Margaret Mitchell was married twice. Her first husband was an illegal purveyor of alcohol, a man of violent temper, Varian Kinnard Upshaw. The beatings and abuse of her spouse made the girl realize that she had made the wrong choice. In 1925, Mitchell divorced him and married John Marsh, an insurance agent. Curiously, the young men had known each other since 1921 and were planning an engagement. Their in-laws were already acquainted, and their wedding day had been set. But Margaret's rash act nearly broke her personal life. John insisted that Margaret leave her job as a reporter, and the family settled on Peach Street. There, the former journalist set about writing a book. Her husband showed wonders of loyalty and patience. He forgot about his jealousy and fully shared the interests of his wife. Marsh persuaded Margaret to take up the pen, not for the public, but for his own satisfaction, because becoming a housewife, Mitchell often experienced depression due to lack of important work. Simple reading was not enough for her inquiring mind. In 1926, Mitchell received a typewriter as a gift from her husband. John supported his wife in everything. Returning from work, he read the material she had written, helped think through the plot twists and conflicts, made edits and looked for primary sources to describe the era. In 1935, the editor of Macmillan Publishers persuaded Mrs. Marsh to let him read her novel. He immediately offered to publish the book. But Margaret spent another 6 months editing the novel, rewriting some parts and reconciling historical dates. Her husband was also involved in editing the novel. The book was published in 1936 and became a bestseller. Despite requests from fans of the novel, the writer never wrote a sequel. Gone with the Wind was her only major work published during her lifetime. In 1937, Margaret Mitchell won the Pulitzer Prize. Margaret was subsequently involved in the translation and publication of the book in other countries. During World War II, she volunteered for the Red Cross and made major donations to the American Army. The Marsh couple had no children. The publication of the novel brought international fame to the author, but Mitchell's fame became a heavy burden. She did not want the increased attention and did not even go to the premiere of the motion picture based on her book. Margaret was invited to lecture at universities, her photos appeared everywhere, and journalists pestered her with requests for interviews. John Marsh took charge during this period. The writer's husband maintained correspondence with publishers and controlled financial matters. He devoted himself to the self-realization of his wife. His wife appreciated the feat, so the novel Gone with the Wind was dedicated to the man Margaret Mitchell loved. Death. Margaret died on August 16, 1949. The cause of death was a traffic accident. She was hit by a car driven by a drunk driver. As a result of the accident, the writer never regained consciousness. The woman was buried in Atlanta at Oakland Cemetery. Margaret Mitchell's husband lived 3 years after her death. The writer is remembered by several quotes: the film Burning Passion, the Margaret Mitchell story, describing the woman's biography, photos, interviews, and the immortal novel. In 1991, Alexandra Ripley published a book called Scarlet, which became a kind of sequel to Gone with the Wind. The presentation of the novel stirred up a new wave of interest in the works of Margaret Mitchell. Margaret Mitchell quotes: "I won't think about it today, I'll think about it tomorrow. When a woman can't cry, it's scary. Hardships either chip away at people or break them.